It's Spoilerin time, ladies and gentlemen. On this episode of Spoilerin time, we will subvert your expectations by finishing the episode, spoiling episode 10 of season 1 of Justified.
Oh, wait, that's exactly what?
Yeah, I know. Also, episodes 4 and 5 of Better Call Saul. We're back on track there. Episode 6 of 11/22/63. The first 5 episodes of season 2 of Daredevil. But Brian Brushwood, I'm Tom Merritt, and we have some news for people.
Yeah, man. People are asking when we're going to get ready for our big summer extravaganza, do the summer movie draft for 2016. And
we said never. Tom will remain champion.
No, that's not. Okay, look. Tom, you got champion fever. Every champion gets this. You always think you're just going to retain the title for all time. That's not the case. No, look, trust me, I had champion fever at some point, but you got to get past it. You got to acknowledge that there's a new
I had it
season.
Before too.
So here's the thing. If you're listening live, it is now Monday night. 24 hours from now, we're going to start the next big summer movie draft extravaganza. It's going to be live at diamondclub.tv. Make sure to join us, and you can get an early jump on the Chat Realm League.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, don't miss that. It's going to be fun. We've got a lovely lineup of movies, and I'm going to win.
Sure you are, Tom.
Sure
you are.
Team DTNS. When I say I mean Team DTNS.
Yeah, of course.
Jenny's going to be in on it too. Although I don't know. She could be the key to the summer. I've never won the summer, right?
Yeah, no, because that's the real league. You've only won the Puerto
People
Rican.
who win the summer say that. I know that.
Little minor league.
I call that. It's a little bigotry.
It's adorable. You guys hitting the ball off the tee like that. It's great.
Yeah, that's why you never win it. Just saying.
I did win it.
Winner? You won the winner.
Yeah, I won. Look, I've won all of them. Some of them more than once.
Damn you. Let's spoil some TV shows instead of this.
Sounds good.
Daredevil. Now you've only watched the first episode of Daredevil, but you gave me explicit permission to spoil all of the episodes I've seen, which is up to episode 5.
Yeah. So let me go first and talk about my initial impressions, and you could tell me which of these actually are borne out. Full disclosure. I couldn't help but hear what other people thought of it because, there's this weird infection where once you've seen something, you want to tell anyone who will listen to you about it. Watching it, number one, I don't know how to say this because there's a reasonable chance that at some point in my real life career, I'm going to run into the actor who plays Foggy. And I'm going to have to look him in the eye, explain the fact that going into season 2, I could say I like the character of Foggy, but recognize that the actor is not so great at acting. And specifically in the first episode, the weakest scene was the scene, especially coming on in an environment where we've seen Sons of Anarchy, where we've seen bikers played with a depth of character in a haunting, I don't know, hallowed, like burden placed upon them and a humanization that happens. Watching them portrayed as 2-dimensional characters and having Foggy act as a 1-dimensional Shaggy from Scooby-Doo, like, zoinks, I'm real sorry I showed up here, guys. That was a little bit difficult. Outside of that, I thought it was good. Just not so much the depth of character that I had come to expect from the first season. Is that the way the rest of the second season is?
No, I don't think I agree with anything you said.
Great, dude, that's wonderful. Good.
I am not the right person to defend Foggy. There are people that I've seen on Twitter saying like Foggy is the best thing about Daredevil season 2. So I don't know why you think that about after episode 1, and I don't know that it would change if you watch the rest of the episodes. But I don't think that's a universal. That's all I'm saying.
Well, no, I will say this: he is my favorite character in the show, but it was one of those moments that I found myself excusing things, and I don't normally find myself excusing things.
My impression of Daredevil is that the first couple episodes are like, oh, okay, we got more Daredevil. This is interesting. Oh, look, it's Shane from The Walking Dead. But he's pretty good as the Punisher. I'm starting to forget he's Shane now that we get to see more and more and more of him. And then episode 4 becomes And that is the story of the Punisher. And Eileen and I both were like, oh man, like it's good, but it's not nearly as good as season 1, and it is not compelling. And Eileen disagreed with me about this, but episode 4 to me felt like the end of a mini season. Like, oh, and that's, we've wrapped it up. Episode 5 is when we finally meet Elektra. So I get what we're doing, which is like, oh, we've kind of put the Punisher on the back burner because we're bringing in Elektra, and then we're going to bring it all to a grand finish. And it's not bad, but I think the telling detail was that we watched, I think, 3 episodes on Saturday night. And 2 episodes on Friday night, 2 episodes on Saturday morning, and then we didn't watch another one the rest of the weekend.
Ew, that's usually not the best sign.
That probably sounds more damning than it was because we had a meetup and I had a hang out, and Eileen had some stuff to do. So it wasn't all like we were sitting down with like, let's watch something. We're not watching Daredevil. We're watching something else. It was partly being busy, but when House of Cards was on, we were sucked in and we were watching it all the way through. And maybe we were less busy too, so maybe that's part of it. But yeah, I guess my summation of it so far is I really like the depiction of the Punisher. I think that's very good. I feel like Matt and Karen and Foggy are as strong as they were in season 1, and I feel like Elektra is intriguing, although I'm curious to find out more about her. And why I care about her, but we're getting a lot of backstory from her. It just doesn't have that same beautiful ballet that was the backstory of Matt Murdock combined with the unveiling of the faceless enemy that was Wilson Fisk that we had in the first season.
Well, and keep in mind, the first season really pulled a magic trick similar to what I love most about Batman Begins is the fact that you were able to watch the majority of the movie just thinking it was just a regular old action movie. And only in the last 20 minutes could you go, oh, crap, wait a minute. There's been a comic book movie the entire time. That's why there's this ridiculous over-the-top plot and the guy's wearing a costume and going through. And I feel like they did the same trick with the first season of Daredevil. Less so this go round. Can I just say, like, I think I'm not crazy about his costumes design. It's too plasticky. I would like to see it look a little bit more like just red stitched leather. I mean, it's like again, that's a dumb thing, and I agree. It's not. But it all matters, right?
I mean, this happens to a lot of us, Brian. Relationships new. Everything's exciting. You love everything. And then you head to season 2 and you start to notice things like, did that costume bother me before? I thought I liked Foggy. And you just start looking around with fresh eyes, and the bloom's off the rose for you, Brian. Sorry.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll see. People are saying in the chat that it gets more enjoyable.
I feel like I'm being harder on Daredevil than I need to be because season 1 was so good.
Right.
Because there are a lot of great things. Some of the scenes with the Irish mafia, the Irish gang, are fantastic. Well orchestrated, beautiful pieces of almost 1800s level of sensibility and violence, but in a perfectly natural 21st century context. And we got to see the guy who played Van Gogh in an episode of Doctor Who be a really creditable bad guy Irish gangster. I do like this idea that with Wilson Fisk gone, there's a power vacuum that people are running into, and that the Punisher is the only one willing to go the extra mile needed to combat that. And that Daredevil is somewhat ineffective because he doesn't want to kill people. And that dialogue becomes really interesting, and they play it out really in a great conversation and a great scene on the rooftop. So there are some excellent things about it.
I totally believe all those things, and I fully admit that I am in the least qualified position to pass judgment on anything. I've got to dive into the rest of this. It's like I just, and maybe this is the burden of having an out of the gates home run is that going into your sophomore season, you have to have everyone have unreasonably high expectations going.
Yeah, you're hitting singles or you're grounding out but driving in a run, and everybody's like, why don't you hit home runs?
Yeah. No. Hey, man, I remember last year. By the way, me of all people, it's like I deal with this all the time. It's like, yeah, Scam School used to be good until he changed his hair, which is a real comment that I got recently.
Yeah.
That the show went to crap when I changed my hairstyle.
Yeah. You know what? That's just pattern recognition. The one didn't have anything to do with the other.
Yeah, no,
I'm not saying it went to
seriously,
crap
the show
either, I'm
used to
just
be
saying.
good, and now it's crap. Yeah.
A haterate in the chat room puts it really well. The Peaky Blinders scenes of Daredevil are great.
Yes.
I totally agree.
I do agree with that.
Yeah. All right. So let's move to 11/22/63. But let's not move in because I don't want to live there, especially with that guy slicing people. I have to say, I am starting to learn to accept what I am getting from 11/22/63, but I'm still really, really frustrated that I'm not getting more of what I wanted out of it.
So what did you want? Real quick.
We've talked about this before. I wanted a
yeah.
story about a guy traveling in time to prevent the assassination of JFK. I wanted that to be the A story, right? And like having a love interest is great. Having these conflicts is great. I actually really love the idea that the past would always move against him, although that seems to have weakened in the last couple episodes.
Well, although I do feel like this last episode, much more than any other, really, really wore on its sleeve the fact that one of his allies essentially turning against him,
that was
becoming
interesting, yeah.
part of the engine that destroys John F. Kennedy. That was an interesting thing. I don't understand why the past would want to screw up the operation to cosmetically make the scar look better on the face of his fiance.
Well, I thought it was that the operation would kill her.
Well, yes, but like, why? I mean,
to hurt him, to make him so depressed that he couldn't carry on.
Attached.
He,
He loves her. He'd get depressed. Yeah, it's a month away from this.
That's a very long, circuitous way to try to stop him from stopping the thing. It's like, I don't know. It's a bit like let's hurt his feelings a week
That's the
before.
least of my problems. I buy that. Like the past is going to punish you, and that is a way to punish him.
Well, no. The past is going to stop you. The past isn't vengeful. It doesn't want to hurt your
the
feelings.
past is vengeful. It's going to do whatever it wants.
The past is effective. It wants to stop
past
you
is an
from making
asshole,
those
Brian.
changes. Yes, it is, but it's not a very effective asshole. That's what I'm saying. Is that it's,
no? I actually think that's pretty effective. Like, you're saying the past should be less contemplative than that.
Well, no,
it seems a bit subtle for the past. It seems like
yes, exactly. If your goal is to stop him from stopping Lee Harvey Oswald, it seems like hurting his feelings is about the worst way to go about affecting that.
I think it's more than hurting his feelings, but I get what you're saying.
I mean, let's say she died on the table, so he'd be sad. He'd still definitely a week later want to stop Lee Harvey Oswald.
I think he goes back and starts over again to save her life.
Well, so here's the thing: is they could have portrayed it as what the past wanted. Like they could have indicated that the past says she was supposed to die and she didn't die. They need to Final Destination this and fix the job.
That's actually even better.
That would have been great. I would have been on board for all of that. But instead, this kind of vague, like, I don't know, a door's locked now. Yeah, crazy times.
Yeah,
right?
you know what? And that actually goes back to your past being a little bit of a dumb force.
Yeah.
Of like, no, just trying to make past stay past would make more sense in that case, where it's like the past isn't trying to punish him or do anything to him. The past is just like, no, she should have died. We need to make her die.
Yeah, it would be weird because the whole reason she had a surgery was because of the hostage situation, which was a result of him.
And the whole reason the hostage
Well,
situation.
no. But again, in the Final Destination version, would make sense. She was supposed to die then, and so now it's.
But that situation wouldn't have happened without
the hostage situation.
Jake.
Would have happened.
That's correct. That's correct. But it did happen, and so now it's time to correct it. So, she's in surgery. Let's just not enough oxygen, dead. I will
I think
say
that was an exact Final Destination death too.
I'm sure, dude.
The goldfish. That's right. There's a goldfish.
So, I will say that aesthetically, I don't mind the fact that they did a trade-off, right? We talked about this last week, whether it was going to be kind of a Tyrion Lannister thing of them just drawing a pink line across her face or whatever. Like they have kind of an angry red scar all down the side of her face, but it's in a place that doesn't obscure her symmetrical beauty or whatever. But it is very, very present the entire time. I thought that was a good way to present it.
We got an email from someone who says, look, you guys just seem to be tolerating 11/22/63. You seem disappointed. The story's not rushing to the Oswald history-changing moment. You view recent episodes as chaff, not germane to what you want to see. That's fine. I would just submit, however, that my enjoyment of the series, as with the book, is about Jake's experiences, the almost self-contained dramas of his life living several years of the early 60s. We were wondering why he's doing all this anyway as an agent of historical change because of some promise to a dead diner owner. I feel like you would be happier to have a 2-hour movie where he just gets to the point of somehow stopping Oswald and goes back to the present to see how that one of several versions of Stephen King considered portraying in the novel. Fair enough. You like what you like and don't like what you don't like. Nobody can argue anyone into appreciating something they don't. Also, you must realize the notion of him being able to reset events requires multiple years each try. How old would the guy end up being to get everything right? And what if he decides, why am I doing this in the first place? To change world history instead of saving the woman he loves. Also, if he stayed in the past, what happens with the date of his real birth arrives?
I mean, I would imagine the date of the birth is fairly irrelevant. Like, if you go in I don't know, a secret wormhole and show up earlier, then you just continue to live.
As long as he doesn't accidentally kill himself.
Right, exactly. But I mean, those are valid points.
Yeah.
I don't know that. Here's the thing. To me, when I think back, and again, this is the unfair characterization. When I think of the book, the prevention of the murder of JFK is, to me, the least interesting part of the book. It's also the least interesting part of this story. I think anytime you have a big job that has to be done over a 3-year stretch, there's going to be a bunch of amazing, very human, very small stories that happen along the way. And I think they've done a very effective job of characterizing that and making us feel what it's like. It's like, well, I'm here to stop the assassination of JFK, but along the way, there's a lot of time to fill, and I'm here with this chick, and she's wonderful, and I'm in love, and I think I might just stay here. I don't know, all of that. I believe all of it.
I'm probably the bigger voice saying that I'm disappointed with what kind of story this is, partly because I didn't read the book. I wanted an action adventure trip back in time. You only got 8 episodes. You can tell entirely a story about someone trying to track down the conspiracy and the past pushing back. And I think it seems like King definitely played with this idea, and they're touching on it in the series of, as he tries to uncover the conspiracy, even though he's right there, he still can't tell if Oswald acted alone. And I think that's fascinating. I want more of that. I want more investigative. I want more action. I want more spy. That's what I came in expecting. And yes, you need to have these love stories. I love the Sadie love story. I think it's fantastic. I love him bringing Bill in and having to pretend that he's a brother. I think these are great. To me, it just feels flip-flopped in an 8-episode series, especially against, like, every episode we get like 5-10 minutes of the main, what to me is the main story, which is him tracking down Oswald, as sort of a sideline to these other stories, which, if they were more appealing to me, I might not mind. If I was like, oh yeah, this is just a great love story. But I don't feel like these love stories are so good that they outshine that spy thriller storyline that I was expecting.
Yeah, so that's the funny part, is you were talking about the parts that you wanted to see. To me, those are the weakest parts of the show, are where they deliver on what you ostensibly want. When he's sitting there choking, what's his name? I don't know. It's like I can't even be bothered to remember
George.
the guy. Yeah, George DeMorge, whatever. George DeMorge, I want to call him. And so he's choking him, and he's like getting answers. I mean, if I was a conspiracy theory nut, I'd be fully erect and super excited about, like, we're finally here. Wouldn't it be great if we could hear this from the guy? But it's like, I don't care. And it's like, and plus it's all
they haven't made
up.
us care. I would like a Bourne Identity feel, right? And again,
sure.
And our emailer is absolutely right. This is me bringing in my prior expectations. But like Jake on the run because the conspiracy people realize he's getting near the truth, and he's still trying to figure out, can he keep his identity secret? Can he keep himself from affecting the past and still save JFK, and the past is working against him. That sounds amazing.
So,
but even in those little slices that we get, you're right, Brian. Instead of that, we get sitting in the back of a car.
Yeah, and what's even more frustrating is we get like astonishingly close to what you're describing. Did you ever read Hearts in Atlantis, the story of low men in yellow coats? Okay, you eventually encounter them later in the Dark Tower series, but where they're best described.
I don't think I read Hearts in Atlantis. What was the one where it all takes place up in Massachusetts? Is that Hearts in Atlantis?
Yeah, that's Hearts in Atlantis. Ted Brodigan,
right?
Right, and he's on the run,
and he keeps seeing the low men in the yellow coats.
Yeah,
and
correct.
Cars coming by.
Like we get a taste of this, and I believe this is different from the book. Remember, in the hospital, you see the yellow card man show up and look at him, and then all of a sudden, like it's as though he's there to set things right. He's the physical manifestation of the idea that you shouldn't be here. I would love to see that taken to 11 because again, that didn't happen in the book, but that doesn't mean that can't be wonderful. Wouldn't it be great if there was like 3 dudes with yellow cards in their hats, and then they were the physical manifestation of trying to stop him from mucking up the works and all this thing? That would have been amazing.
Yeah. And again, I am willing to be happily disappointed in not getting that kind of story that I expected if this love story and the story between him and Bill is just so overwhelmingly awesome that I don't care anymore. And I'm like, I'm just having such a great time with this story. But for whatever reason, I'm not. And I'm not saying I hate that Sadie story. I think Sadie's great. I think that their relationship is really interesting. I love Mimi, Miss Mimi. That whole side plot is probably the most interesting thing to me. And we spent such a little amount of time on that.
I totally agree. Miss Mimi is well acted, and I'll say like that scene with Miss Mimi and what's his name, the Jake? Hobgoblin as. Wait, no, what's the main character's name? Jake. In Spider-Man 3, he played the Hobgoblin, the Green Goblin's son. All right, but I mean, they're such brilliant actors, and every time he smiles, I just melt, and I feel like I'm actually there in the 1960s or whatever.
Yeah.
But and all of that is not enough to really entice me all the way in.
All right, let's catch back up with Better Call Saul, episodes 4 and 5. These are essentially Jimmy McGill trying to redeem himself, both in the eyes of his girl and in the eyes of his brother. And for the first time, I know, Brian, that you feel these are moving pretty slow, but the one thing I think does stand out, for the first time, we see a glimmer of Saul. We see that moment where he's yelling at Chuck to just like say, restore her, I'll leave the law, I'll stop being Jimmy McGill. And immediately my mind's like, but you didn't say you wouldn't be some other lawyer.
Sure. And that was last week, right? That was his flashpoint of like, his galvanizing point of like, say the word and admit that you're, that you're beneath me, that you are also flawed, that you
come and roll around in the dirt with me, Chuck.
Exactly. And Chuck will not do that, right? And he does not do that. Going into this week's episode, we get a different take. We get we find
Kim Wexler, that's her name.
Yeah,
right?
Correct. This is the brilliance of Better Call Saul, is that we are shown 2 polar opposite. We are shown the overly righteous side of things, both in Kim Wexler, and we see it with his new shadow, the chick who keeps insisting that everything be done by the books and above board. And when he tries to drop a Beanie Baby off in order to get a decent spot on the docket, and she freaks out and is like, you can't do that. And we as the viewers are like, okay, look, this is just how it's done. Why are you busting his balls on this, right? And then likewise, we see the dark side, the completely wrong side. And this is what's brilliant about Saul Goodman, Jimmy McGill as our avatar, is that we understand both sides of this issue, and we want to be with him walking that morally ambiguous gray line.
All of that said, Mike's story is way more interesting to me right now.
Yes. You know why? Because stuff is happening. because Mike is doing things. That's why it's more interesting. For whatever reason, they've decided to press pause on Jimmy McGill's story and color in all the... Look, I understand. Bob Ross can't be painting the tree the entire time. At some point, he's got to stop to bother to draw some pretty clouds over here and over there. That's great. That's where we're at. Don't mean I have to enjoy it. It just means I have to sit through it so we can get back to him drawing the goddamn tree.
Well, and the idea for me as a viewer is that's fine as long as all of those things pay off with a beautiful painting in the end, right?
Correct.
Like those pieces that you're giving me, the relationship with the assistant, the fight with Chuck, the dispute with Kim, who's down and still not being able to be rescued from downstairs. All of that is going to pay off. I believe in my heart of hearts that it will all be worth slogging through because I haven't been let down by Vince Gilligan before. So I'm assuming that we spent all of that time for a good reason. It'll be a huge firework bonus coming up. But meanwhile, Mike is keeping me interested because it's Mike, right? So Mike Ehrmantraut is just a crazy character. It's him trying to play Nacho in order to reduce his trouble and save lives in a genius acted scene where he has to pretend, right? That he doesn't know what's going on. And then the twist of like, oh, Mike pulled that off so brilliantly. He diffused that situation and everybody wins except for Tuco. And then Tuco's, his uncle?
His uncle, yeah.
Hector Salamanca?
As a matter of fact, for the first time, I actually had an inferior experience being a cord cutter because I bought it on Amazon. And of course, Amazon, every time you move the mouse over the browser, it says who's in the scene. And so I was in the middle of resizing stuff and it says Mike Ehrmantraut. And I'm like, yeah. And all of a sudden it says blah, 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 Hector Salamanca. And I was just like,
oh, no.
Oh, I probably shouldn't know that. And I was
Spoiled
counting
by X-ray.
down. Yes, exactly. Until that moment that I was like, I wonder at what point I was supposed to figure that out on my own. It was crazy. Yeah.
But it was great, like to see him up and about, not in a wheelchair, certainly with no bell that he had to. And so it raises that question as a Breaking Bad viewer: what are we going to get from his story? Like, how are we going to get him to the chair that he's in later on? What progress are we going to see there?
Well, I think it's fairly self-evident he's going to have a stroke at some point. And by the way, Perfect Race, Jackie Hearn points out in the chat that the moment he walked in, there was a bell ringing in the diner, which you also noticed. Yes. I did not notice. I thought that was fantastic.
They make it even louder. No, it's great. And he is now, you see Mike just like, oh, jeez. Now I got to deal with this because, my whole point was to put Tuco away, and now his uncle doesn't want to put away, understandably. And his uncle's powerful, so I can't just tell him to buzz off. And so Mike's story unwittingly is similar to Jimmy's because he keeps thinking he's solving a problem, and it keeps getting worse outside of his own control. Now you could blame Jimmy. It's like, well, Jimmy's not following the rules. Mike's in a world where there are no rules, right? Well, y'all make up the rules as they go along.
This is the whole thing, is water flows downhill, right? And so if you think of people's situations, people are going to take the path of least resistance. And in this case, Mike, being an astute individual, realizes, I can either go ahead and accept this lump and let this guy get out and take the heat and claim this is my gun, which will be an inconvenience of, 0.5 units.
But also Nacho is going to be upset because that was the whole plan at the beginning.
Sure. Okay, we'll bump it up to 0.75 inconvenience units. Or I can stand up against these guys and I'm looking at a whole lot more trouble on that. Right. So it's like, I don't really care. I'll just do whatever takes the least amount of damage here.
Yeah, but then he still has to go back to Nacho, and it's a hassle, right? You can just see it on his face. It's not a life-ending dilemma. It's not a disaster. It's a hassle because now he's got to go back to Nacho, and he's, okay, fine. You wanted me to do this other shooting thing. Now I got to come up with another solution, and Nacho's going to be upset, and maybe he's going to try to shoot Mike. Who knows? I don't know. It's just all he wears it on his face, and that's why. Even though I get what you're saying about the slowness of Jimmy's story, I still think Better Call Saul is one of the best things on television right now.
Oh, certainly.
So enjoyable.
I certainly would not dispute that at all. It's like any good narrative arc, there are peaks and valleys, and we're just in a valley right now. We're setting up things for later. We're building up context for things that happened in the past, and all that is fine. It's just, I'm ready for something big to happen again.
Let's talk about something big. The Judge in Justified, episode 10, The Hammer, which starts off with one of the greatest fake outs in television history, where he is getting the venom from a snake.
That's right. By the way, this is the actor that played the main guy in News Radio, right?
He is a famous character actor, and of course, so famous I can't remember his name right now.
Yes, he also played the red stapler guy in Office Space and all that stuff. Fantastic job. Instantly unlikable, but yet the quarry to protect and so on.
Well, unlikable in a likable way. For me, if that makes sense, like
Stephen
it's like,
Root, yeah, no, that's the guy's name. Yeah,
gosh, I don't want to like this guy, but he's just so darn like self-insulated in his world that I can't wait to see what he does next and what horrible rationalization. And at least he's got principles, right? And this is a testament to Justified. We even get a deep explanation for why he has become the Hammer.
Yeah, that's one of the things I really liked is the humanization of the judge, because in most conflicts, in most whether it's in movies or television shows, when you have some kind of courtroom drama, oftentimes the judge is the final arbiter, right? It's just a random, he's God, essentially. He says this side wins, this side loses. Whereas you shed that and you're like, no, this is a guy with hopes and ambitions and dreams and machinations and all that stuff, which you don't often see just because it doesn't fit into the narrative, the narrative flow usually.
Stephen Root.
That's what I said. Yeah, no.
Oh, you said that already?
Yeah, no, I read it right out of the chat room, and I took credit for it. I'm brilliant.
Judge Mike Reardon. Mike Reardon, also a great DJ or announcer, I guess, radio announcer. Different guy, though. Doesn't act like Judge Mike Reardon at all. I also feel like I watched 2 episodes because we also get Boyd Crowder doing up to some shenanigans, preaching out in the wilderness to his flock. Raylan confronts him about it, says, hey, we'll give you $50,000 if you can give us any information leading to the arrest of this guy standing right next to me right now. You're a preacher. And then we see the delicate dance of you need to stop making the meth. And boy, aren't these trailers explosive. And of course, then the no holds barred of him going and blowing up the trailer because that was the threat.
Right.
In spite of what his dad wants. And I like the fact that the marshals think that he's doing it for his dad. They're misunderstanding the situation. And that beautiful moment where they tell him, hey, man, so-and-so was still in the back. You killed him. And he just kind of turns away and looks like you're thinking, oh, he's gonna regret this. And you see the barest hint of a smile.
Well, and this is the brilliance of the preaching scene is that they set it up to where it's just plausible enough that Boyd actually believes the horse crap he's shoveling. And because, like, it's not clear that he's putting on the show because he knows Raylan is sneaking up on him right there. He's just in the middle of preaching, which suggests that maybe this is something he's doing all the time, is preaching, saying the same horse crap over and over and over and over again. Yeah, no, I'm definitely interested to see where this headed.
And then I guess it's Johnny Crowder shows up and is like, man, that Nazi shit was something, but look at you. I'm starting to think you believe it. And Boyd doesn't break character.
Yeah, yeah.
And you're like, wow, does he? And it's that perfect thing where Boyd is probably letting himself believe it just enough to be convincing because he knows that will meet his ends. Right? Well, I think he's a complex enough character that there's part of him that wants to believe all of this, that actually does want to become a better person and believe in this religion, but he also wants to do these other things.
Well, because it's a fictional character, I think that the odds are really good that they're going to establish him as actually believing, but within that framework, having flexibility, where it's like,
he's rationalized.
He could totally believe it. Yeah, exactly.
Of approaching it. I also, I think it's important to note, and those who have watched Justified can snicker to themselves silently at my naivete. I think it's important to note that the guy he killed in the trailer was an informant for the Marshal Service.
Snitch.
He was an inside person. So was he a snitch or was he an agent? That I can't remember now.
I don't remember.
But yeah, he was in the pay of the marshals in either way. So I feel like that's the kind of thing that's going to come back later on.
Yeah, well, regardless, I continue to enjoy our slow descent into the justified madness. I think it's really good. I'm only sad that I haven't watched as much Daredevil as you have. I think what I'm going to try to do for going into next week's episode is I'll finish up House of Cards. I think I'll get caught up with you. Hopefully, finish up Daredevil. I'll finish watching. You should watch Pee-wee's Big Adventure.
I will. I'll try to watch that. Yeah. That's a good one. Yeah, for sure.
Awesome.
And then we can talk about that. Well, thanks everybody. Keep in mind that Walton Goggins was in Bourne Identity. So when I made that reference, I was making another Walton Goggins reference. And we'll spoil you next time.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.